Sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones who make us feel the smallest. I was just a mother, a grandmother, a woman who wanted to stay connected, to share a little part of her life online. But when I tried, my own children laughed. They said I was too old, that nobody wanted to see what I was doing. So I stayed quiet. I stayed small. But the world, it had other plans. And when the gifts began to arrive, letters, packages, invitations, I saw something in their eyes that I had not seen in years. Was it respect? Was it jealousy? Or was it something deeper? This is not just a story about social media. It is a story about identity, silence, and finding your voice when no one wants to hear it. So take a deep breath with me. We are going back to the beginning now. Before we jump in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Carol Bennett. I am 64 years old, and I have always believed in quiet mornings and gentle habits. Every day I woke up at 6:30, made a cup of tea with honey, and sat by the window to watch the sunrise. My small house is in the suburbs, just outside Portland. It is not too big, not too fancy, but it is full of memories. I have lived here for 30 years. I raised my children here. I watched them take their first steps in the hallway. I cooked their favorite meals in the kitchen. I wiped their tears, packed their school lunches, and stayed awake on late nights waiting for them to come home. Now, the house is quiet. My husband, George, passed away 8 years ago. Cancer took him quickly. After he was gone, I found silence everywhere. At first it hurt. Then slowly it became something I got used to. I still talk to his picture every morning. Just a few words. Good morning, George. It comforts me. My daughter, Melissa, lives 30 minutes away with her husband and 2 children. My son, Adam, moved to Seattle. He works in technology. They both visit, but not often. Melissa comes by once every 2 weeks. Sometimes she brings the kids. I always make cookies, chocolate chip, just like she loved when she was small. But the visits never last long. Everyone is always in a rush. I never wanted to bother them. I know they have their own lives, their jobs, their children, their plans. So I stayed in the background. I did what mothers do when the world moves on without them. I smiled and said, I was fine, even when I felt forgotten. To pass the time, I kept myself busy. I joined a local book club. I planted flowers in my garden. I helped at the church bake sale every Saturday. The ladies at the community center liked me. They said I made the softest scones. I suppose that is something. One day, after church, I heard a woman talking about a recipe she posted on something called Reels. I did not understand what she meant. She said it got over 1,000 views. I smiled politely, but I had no idea what that meant. Later, I asked Melissa about it. She laughed. Oh, Mom, do not worry about that stuff. It is just social media. It is not for people your age. Her words stung more than she knew. Not for people your age. Like there was a line I had crossed without knowing. Like I did not belong in that part of the world anymore. I said nothing, but I thought about it later that night. I sat in bed, holding my phone. I barely used it except to call or check the weather. But now, I looked at it differently. I wondered, what would happen if I tried to share something? A recipe, a story, a photo, something small. The next morning, I took a picture of the blueberry muffins I had made. I looked up how to post it. It took me almost an hour, but I finally did it. I wrote, "My husband loved these. I still make them every Sunday." Then I hit share. I had no idea what I was doing, but I felt a strange spark in my chest. Like I had opened a door. No one liked the post that day. No comments. Nothing. but I still felt proud. I had done something new, something just for me. When I told Melissa, she smiled the way you smile at a child who draws a picture with crooked lines. "That is sweet, Mom," she said, "but do not get your hopes up." I nodded and changed the subject, but something inside me had shifted. I began to take more photos. I shared my garden, my teacup collection. I even posted a short video of me making apple pie crust by hand. I only had 3 followers. 2 were people from church, but it made me feel seen. Still, I kept it quiet. I did not want to be laughed at. I did not want to hear those words again. Not for people your age. Everything seemed calm on the outside. My days moved slowly. My routines stayed the same. But something had begun to grow inside me. A seed of curiosity. A question that would not leave me alone. What if I could belong in that world too? I did not know then how much would change, but I could feel it beginning, like the faint scent of rain before the storm. It started with a look. Melissa came over on a Sunday afternoon, just as she always did. The children ran through the hallway while I set the table for lunch. I had made her favorite, roast chicken with rosemary and lemon. She smiled politely when she saw it, but her eyes flicked quickly to her phone. We sat down, and I asked her how her week had been. She said it had been busy, but good. Then, she asked if she could use the Wi-Fi. "The signal out here is awful," she said. I nodded and told her the password. As she typed it in, her eyes narrowed slightly. "Mom," she said, "what is this account name?" I looked up from my plate. "Which account?" She held up her phone. "This username. It is showing under connected devices. Teacups and traditions. What is that?" I felt my face grow warm. "It is mine," I said softly. "It is just something small I started. I post a few things sometimes." She stared at me for a second, then gave a short laugh. "You started a social media page?" "Yes," I said. "Just pictures, recipes, a few memories. Nothing big." She shook her head. I had no idea. "Why would you do that, Mom?" I did not know how to answer. Why would I? Because I wanted to feel seen. Because the silence in the house was too loud. Because sharing a photo felt like whispering into the world, hoping someone might listen. Instead, I just said, "It made me feel good." She did not respond right away. Her fork pushed at her food. "You should be careful," she said finally. "The internet is not always kind." I nodded, trying to hold on to the peace I had felt earlier. But her words stuck in my chest like a stone. That night, after they left, I opened my account. I had posted a video that morning. Just a short one. I showed how to fold cloth napkins into roses. It had gotten 17 likes. One comment said, "Reminds me of my grandma." I smiled. Still, I kept hearing Melissa's voice in my mind. "Why would you do that, Mom?" The next week, something strange happened. I went to the grocery store. In the produce section, a young woman walked up to me. She was in her 30s, with dark curly hair and a warm smile. "Excuse me?" she said. "Are you Carol from Teacups and Traditions?" I blinked. "Yes," I said slowly. "That is me." "I love your posts," she said. "I tried your peach cobbler last week. My kids loved it." I felt my heart skip. "You did? That makes me very happy." She smiled again. "Keep sharing. It is lovely." When I got home, I sat in the car for a long moment before going inside. Someone recognized me. Someone I did not know. Not because of my family, not because of George. Just me. Something small had shifted again, but not everyone was so kind. Later that evening, I got a message on my account. It said, "Are you someone's grandma trying to be famous?" There was a laughing face next to it. I did not respond. I simply deleted the message. Still, my fingers trembled as I turned off the phone. The next morning, I met Melissa for coffee. She seemed distracted, scrolling through her phone. I told her about the woman in the store. I expected her to smile, maybe even be proud. Instead, she said, "You should not take that too seriously, Mom. These people just want recipes. They are not really your friends." I nodded, but something inside me twisted. I knew they were not friends, but they were kind. They noticed me. That evening, I sat on the porch. The sun was low, and the sky was pink. I sipped my tea slowly, watching the trees sway in the wind. I felt a mixture of peace and sadness. There was joy in what I was doing, but there was also something else growing, something harder to name. Melissa's tone, her questions, even that message online. It all felt like small cracks in something I thought was strong. Like a teacup that looked perfect until the light hit it just right. I did not know why it bothered her so much. I was not hurting anyone. I was just sharing what made me feel alive. And yet, I could feel something changing. I could not sleep that night. I kept turning from side to side, my thoughts chasing one another in circles. Melissa's voice echoed in my mind again and again. "You should be careful. They are not really your friends." Why would you do that, Mom? Was I doing something wrong? It did not feel wrong when I shared a memory or posted a recipe. It felt comforting. It gave my days rhythm. It made me feel useful again. I would wake up, pour my tea, and think, what would someone like to see today? Maybe it was silly. Maybe it was small. But it felt good. It felt real. Still, her words stuck to me like cold air. The next morning, I went about my routine. I watered the plants. I folded laundry. I answered a few messages from kind strangers who had seen my posts. One woman said she had shared my lavender, cookies with her book club. Another said my story about dancing with George reminded her of her own late husband. I read each message slowly, holding the warmth of them inside me. But the confusion would not leave me. At lunchtime, I decided to call my son David. He answered quickly. "Hi, Mom," he said. "Everything okay?" "Yes," I replied. "I just wanted to hear your voice. It has been a few weeks." He paused. "Yeah, things have been busy. Kids, work, you know how it is." I smiled softly. "I do." We talked for a few minutes about the children and his job. Then I brought it up. "David," I said, "did Melissa mention to you that I have been sharing some things online?" He laughed lightly. "Yeah, she did. She was a bit surprised." I waited. He did not say more, so I asked, "How do you feel about it?" He hesitated. "Honestly, Mom, I just do not want you to get hurt. People on the internet can be strange. They can say cruel things, and sometimes it is embarrassing." "Embarrassing?" I repeated. "Well, yes," he said. "I mean, you are not exactly their target audience. You are a bit older." I felt a sting behind my eyes. I looked down at my hands resting on the kitchen table. They were the same hands that had held him as a baby, the same hands that had clapped at his school plays, the same hands that had packed his lunches and fixed his shirts and wiped his tears, and now those hands were too old for the internet? "I just thought it was something nice," I said quietly. "Something that made me feel connected." He sighed. "Look, Mom, Do whatever makes you happy. Just do not expect everyone to understand it." I thanked him for the call and hung up. I stared at the blank wall across from me for a long time. Something inside me felt dimmer than it had the day before. Later that day, I walked to the local market. As I passed the bakery, a woman called out to me, "You are the napkin folding lady." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You showed how to make the rose shape with napkins, right?" "I used your video for my anniversary dinner. My husband was impressed." I felt the corners of my mouth lift. "Yes," I said. "That was me." She smiled warmly. "You are creative. I hope you keep posting. It is lovely." After she left, I sat on a nearby bench. The breeze touched my cheeks gently. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. How could I feel two things at once? So proud and so unsure. At home that evening, I stood in front of the mirror. I looked at myself closely. My hair was softer now, lighter with age. There were lines around my mouth and eyes. I touched my cheek and whispered, "You are still here. You still matter." The confusion remained, but something deeper stirred beneath it, something I could not name yet. I opened my laptop and started typing a new post. I titled it, "What? My Hands Remember." I wrote about kneading dough in my mother's kitchen, about fixing torn curtains, about brushing my daughter's hair, about holding George's hand when the world felt too heavy. Then I ended it with one sentence. These hands may be older, but they still have stories to tell. I clicked post, and for a moment the confusion grew quiet. It was a Tuesday morning when I received the message. It was from a woman named Claire. Her profile picture showed her sitting on a bench with a large floppy hat and a bright smile. The message was simple. "I love the way you speak about memories. Your stories feel like home." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I read it again. There was something gentle about her words, something that felt like an old friend's voice. I replied with a quiet thank you. I did not expect her to write back, but she did, within minutes. That was how it began. We started exchanging messages almost every day. Claire told me she was 58, recently retired, and lived in a small town by the sea. She said my post about napkin folding had reminded her of her grandmother. She shared that she had lost her own mother 2 years ago and still missed her laugh. Her words were kind, and her pace was slow. She never rushed. She never pried. I began to look forward to her messages. When I wrote about grief, she responded with understanding. When I posted a photo of my garden, she sent one of her own window box full of petunias. Something about Claire made me feel safe. One evening, I told her about what Melissa had said, about David, about feeling foolish and invisible. I waited nervously for her response. She replied with this, "Your children may not see what I see, but I promise you, your voice matters. Do not let their fear become your silence." I read those words out loud. Twice. Do not let their fear become your silence. I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But part of me whispered, "Be careful." I had not made a new friend in a long time. Not someone who seemed to understand me like this. Not since George. And yet, here was Claire, gentle, honest, and open. One day she asked if we could talk over video. I hesitated. I looked at my reflection. My hair was not done. There were shadows under my eyes, but I said yes. We set a time for Saturday afternoon. When the screen lit up and I saw her face, something inside me softened. She looked exactly how I imagined. Her eyes were warm and her voice was calm. "Hello, Helen," she said. "It is so good to finally meet you." We spoke for over an hour. We talked about our husbands, both gone too soon. About the way silence can feel heavy in an empty house. About the beauty of small joys, a good cup of tea, a warm pair of socks, the right song at the right time. It felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater for too long. After we ended the call, I sat in the quiet and smiled. I wanted to trust her. I really did. But trust is not a door you walk through quickly. It is something you open slowly, with your hand on the knob, listening for creaks. That night, I wrote in my journal. I wrote, "Claire feels like a light in the fog." And yet, in the back of my mind, Melissa's voice returned. Not everyone online is who they say they are. I wanted to believe that Claire was exactly who she appeared to be. I wanted to believe that friendship could bloom, even through a screen. The next morning, I received a small package on my doorstep. No return address. Just my name, written neatly. Inside was a handwritten card. "I saw this and thought of you," it said. Wrapped carefully in tissue paper was a small ceramic bird. Soft blue. Wings open. There was no signature, but I knew who it was from. Claire held the bird in my palm for a long time. Was it foolish to let someone in like this? Was it wrong to hope? I placed the bird on my windowsill, just above the sink. Then I whispered to the empty room, "I want to trust her." And for now, that would be enough. It started with a phone call I did not expect. I was folding laundry when the phone rang. The number was familiar, but I had not spoken to the person in months. It was Linda, an old friend from church. We used to share recipes, talk about our children, and sit together during Sunday services. But over the years, life drifted us apart. "Still," I answered. "Hello?" Her voice was warm, but there was something else behind it. A hesitation. "Hi, Helen. I hope I'm not bothering you." I felt I needed to call. I sat down slowly, the basket of towels forgotten. "No, not at all. Is everything all right?" She paused. Then she said, "I saw one of your videos, the one where you shared the story about your wedding ring." I felt a rush of emotion. That video had been personal. Me, sitting at the kitchen table, holding the gold band in my hand, talking softly to the camera about memory and love. "I just wanted to say," Linda continued, "it was beautiful, honest, but Helen." I also saw some of the comments. My heart began to thump. "I know the internet can be a wild place," she said gently, "and I do not want to scare you. But please be careful, especially with the people you meet on there." I swallowed hard. "You mean Claire?" I asked. Quietly, there was a pause. "I do not know her," Linda said. "But sometimes people seem kind at first. They say all the right things. They listen when no one else does. And then they ask for something. Money. Favors. Access." She was trying to protect me. I could hear it in her voice. But I also felt something tighten in my chest. Claire had not asked me for anything. Not once. She had only given. Given her time, her kindness, her little ceramic bird. Still, Linda's words stayed with me. After we hung up, I stood at the sink and stared at the small blue bird on my windowsill. It looked so peaceful there, wings outstretched. But now, I was seeing it through different eyes. Was it a gift, or was it something else? A way in. A hook. My stomach turned. I walked into the living room and sat down, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders, even though the room was warm. I opened my messages with Claire and scrolled. Everything she had written still felt sincere. There were no questions about money, no strange requests, just a woman who seemed to understand my loneliness. But now, the doubt had entered, like a drop of ink in a glass of water. I remembered the story of a neighbor's aunt, who had been tricked by a man pretending to be a soldier overseas. He had sent her poems, photos, love letters. And then he asked for help with a plane ticket. She sent money. Thousands. When the truth came out, she was heartbroken and ashamed. I never wanted to feel that kind of betrayal. I never wanted to be the fool who believed too easily. And yet, there was something in me that did not want to give up on Claire. I remembered our video call. The way her eyes softened when she spoke about her mother. The way she had laughed when I told her how I once burned a pot of rice so badly I had to throw the pan away. She had felt real. But Linda's warning echoed in my mind. That evening, I decided to take a step back. I did not message Claire. I did not open her new video. Instead, I brewed a cup of tea and sat in silence. I listened to the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. I watched the steam curl above my cup, and I whispered to myself, "Helen, listen. Do not rush. Pay attention." I looked again at the ceramic bird. It was still beautiful, still delicate, but now it looked like a question, not an answer. A soft warning had entered my world, and I knew I would need to listen closely in the days to come. I told myself I was overthinking. That night, I placed the ceramic bird back on the windowsill and whispered, "It is just a gift." I tried to laugh softly to myself, as if saying it aloud could push away the feeling. But something inside me stayed unsettled. I turned off my phone and went to bed early, hoping sleep would wash away the unease. The next morning, the sun came in gently through the curtains. I made my tea, added a bit of honey like always, and looked outside. The world looked the same. Birds flew past. The wind moved through the trees. Children walked to school with backpacks bouncing behind them. So I told myself, everything is fine. I opened my messages again. Claire had sent a voice note. "Good morning, Helen. I just wanted to check on you. I hope you are doing something kind for yourself today. I am making pancakes, but I keep burning them. I need your advice." I smiled, despite the knot in my stomach. There was no reason to feel afraid. She had done nothing wrong. Maybe Linda was being overly careful. Maybe she was just worried because of her own past. I listened to the message again, and this time, I let myself enjoy it. Claire's voice was bright, cheerful, even silly. She reminded me of how my daughter, Ava, used to sound, before everything changed. I replied with a short message and a smile. I even included a picture of my own pancakes from last weekend. Then, I put down my phone and took a deep breath. "See," I told myself, "there is nothing wrong." Still, I noticed how I kept checking the time, how I jumped when the doorbell rang, how I locked my phone and then unlocked it again 2 minutes later. I was trying so hard to feel normal, but something had shifted. When I went to the store that afternoon, I passed the community bulletin board near the entrance. A small flyer caught my eye. It read, "Online Safety Workshop. Protecting yourself from scams and manipulation." I stopped. For a full minute, I just stood there, staring at the paper. I almost tore it down. Not because I disagreed with it, but because I was afraid of what it might say about me. Was I really someone who needed a class like that? Was I that vulnerable? I shook the thought from my head and walked away. But my reflection in the freezer doors stayed with me. A woman with careful eyes, holding a list, wearing her good scarf even though it was not cold, trying to look fine, pretending. I got home and unpacked slowly. The silence in the kitchen felt louder than usual. I started making soup, carrots, onions, garlic. The cutting helped. It gave me something to do with my hands. But while I stirred the pot, my mind kept drifting. What if Claire really was a friend? What if Linda's warning had nothing to do with her? Had I let fear steal something good from me again? I thought about my children, how they always said I was too soft, too trusting. A stranger smiles at you once, Ava once said, and you treat them like family. Maybe she was right. Or maybe I was just someone who believed in kindness. Was that really such a flaw? I poured the soup into a bowl and sat at the table alone. The chair across from me was empty, but I pictured Claire sitting there, her curly hair tied back, her spoon clinking gently. I could almost hear her laugh. And for a moment, I missed her. Missed the newness, the lightness. So I told myself again, let it go, Helen. Stop looking for danger. Just live. I picked up my phone, typed a short message. Thank you for the voice note. You made me smile. Pancakes are tricky. Try lower heat. That always helps me. I paused before sending it. Then I hit send. I put the phone face down and whispered, "It is probably nothing." But the doubt, it did not leave. I have always believed in eyes. They speak before words do. They whisper things that mouths may never admit. That evening, my son Daniel came by. He told me he was just in the neighborhood, but I knew better. My children had never dropped by without a reason, especially not Daniel. Still, I made tea. I placed 2 oat biscuits on a small white plate, the ones he used to like when he was a boy. He sat down with a sigh, not looking at me right away. He kept checking his phone, tapping his thumb over and over. His leg bounced beneath the table. Asked gently, "Is something wrong?" He gave a smile, but it did not touch his eyes. "No, Mum," he said. "Everything is fine. Just wanted to see how you were." But when he finally looked up at me, something in his eyes flickered. It was not kindness, it was not warmth, it was worry or maybe disbelief. He looked at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle, like I was someone unfamiliar. And I realized then, he had seen my videos. He had seen the comments, the followers, the little moments I shared with my tiny online world. I sipped my tea and waited. He finally said, "Mom, are you doing something on the internet?" I smiled softly. "Yes," I said, "just little things. Cooking, thoughts, stories." He laughed, but not kindly. "Are you serious? I mean, do you even know how dangerous that is? People get scammed, or worse." There it was, the judgment, the fear. But it was not for me. It was for how I might reflect on them. On him. I kept my tone even. I have learned a lot. I am careful. And I enjoy it. He stared at me again. That same puzzled expression. "You do not even like technology." "That is not true," I said. "I was just never given the chance to explore it." Silence settled between us. He took a biscuit, bit into it too hard. Crumbs fell on the table, and he brushed them away without care. And then he said something that stayed with me. "Claire told me she is helping you, that she is managing some of it. Mom, you do not even know who she really is." The way he said her name, cold. And suddenly, I understood. This was not just about me being online. It was about control, about pride, about his discomfort, that someone else, someone younger, maybe even someone outside the family, was part of my world now. I kept my voice calm. "Claire has been kind to me. She has never asked for anything." His jaw tightened. "That is what they do, Mum. They build trust. Then they take everything." I blinked. He did not see me as wise. He saw me as weak, as a woman who needed protection from her own curiosity. I looked at him. Really looked. My son. The boy I raised. The man who used to run to me with scraped knees and wide eyes. Now he looked at me like I was a stranger who could not be trusted with her own life. I appreciate your concern, I said. Slowly, but this brings me joy. I feel useful. Alive. He shook his head. You do not need strangers telling you that. You have family. I wanted to say, but where was my family when I was sitting alone in this house for years? But I did not. Only said, sometimes strangers listen more closely than the people we love. That silenced him. For a long time he stared at the window. Then he stood up, his hands in his pockets. I just want you to be careful, he said. People are not always who they say they are. I nodded. I know. And I watched him walk, away, the door clicking softly behind him. But what stayed with me was not what he said. It was how he looked at me, like I had become something unexpected. Not in a good way. Not yet. But it was a beginning. I could not sleep after Daniel's visit. His words echoed in my mind like distant thunder. You do not even know who she really is. That one sentence kept spinning in circles, making me doubt everything I had felt so sure about. Was Claire really just being kind? Or was Daniel right to question her? I hated the feeling. I hated not knowing who to trust. The next morning, I sat at the edge of my bed for a long time. I looked at the photo on my dresser. It was from Daniel's graduation. I stood beside him, smiling, holding his hand. He had looked so proud then, so full of hope. Now things felt distant, and I was tired of guessing. I needed to know. That afternoon, I called Claire. I asked her to meet me at the café near the park, the one with the ivy on the wall and the chipped wooden tables. When she arrived, she looked like sunlight. Bright smile, soft cardigan, hair tucked behind her ears. She waved, cheerful as always. But something in me was not as open. Not today. We sat down, and she ordered her usual, an iced latte with oat milk. I asked for chamomile tea. I waited until the drinks arrived. Then I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, Claire, why are you really helping me? Her face froze for a moment. Just a moment. She blinked. Then she smiled, smaller this time. I help you because I like you, she said, because I believe in you. I nodded, but I needed more. I mean, do you want something in return? Are you hoping for something? Money? Access? She looked hurt. Her hands curled slightly around her glass. No, she said softly. I never asked you for anything. I leaned forward, my voice steady. But if I offered you something, say, a partnership or payment, would you accept it? She took a breath. Long. Careful. I would only accept it if it came from your heart, she said. Not from guilt, not from pressure, and definitely not because someone made you suspicious of me. I stared at her. She knew. She knew Daniel had said something, and still she did not flinch. I want to believe you, I said. But it is hard. I have been lied to before, and I am not as sharp as I once was. She shook her head quickly. You are sharp, Helen, do not say that. You are wise. You have lived through more than most people ever will, and you are not wrong to ask questions. I would ask them, too. Her words felt honest, but I had to push once more. What is your dream, Claire? I asked. Tell me what you want out of life. Please, no filters. She smiled. this time with a touch of sadness. "I want to start a digital agency for older creators," she said. "People like you, people who have stories, voices, knowledge, but no one to guide them. I want to help them shine." Her eyes grew soft. "My grandmother had so much wisdom, but no one ever listened to her. She died thinking she had nothing left to give. I do not want that for anyone else." A silence settled over the table. It was not heavy. It was full of meaning. I believed her. Maybe not completely, but enough. I reached across the table and touched her hand. "Thank you for answering me honestly," I said. I just needed to hear it. Out loud, she nodded. "You have every right to ask, Helen. Always." As we left the cafe, I felt a quiet sense of peace. Not certainty, but peace. She had not avoided my question. She had looked me in the eye, and that meant something. Later, that night, I sat at my desk and turned on my phone. I read some of the new comments on my latest post. One read, "Your voice feels like home. I hope you post again tomorrow." And for the first time in days, I smiled. Because now I knew something true. Whether Claire stayed or left, this journey was mine. And I had the right to ask questions. I had the right to protect my voice, because I had found it, and I was not going to lose it again. The moment I closed my eyes that night, my mind started racing. I could not stop thinking. Every little word, every glance from that afternoon, circled inside my head like restless birds. I wondered if I had been too harsh with Claire. Had I scared her away, or had I done the right thing by asking? I turned over the conversation again and again. Her calm answers, the way she did not hide from my questions. That had felt honest. But then, Daniel's warning buzzed in the back of my mind. Do not trust her. Why did his words feel so sharp? Was it love? Was it jealousy? I did not know. The room was dark except for the small lamp on my bedside table. The clock ticked loudly in the quiet. I thought about my children. They did not want me on social media. They said it was a waste of time, that it was not safe, that I was too old to understand the internet. I remembered the last time I spoke to James. He told me my posts were embarrassing. How could they say such things? I had opened a new world for myself, a place where I could be heard, where my voice mattered. Yet, their words made me feel small. I felt alone. So alone. I thought about the brands that had started to notice me. The unexpected gifts, the messages of thanks. I smiled at the memory of the first package I received. A beautiful box, wrapped with a ribbon full of skincare products. No note, just the brand name. I had not expected it. I wondered what my children would think if they knew. Would they still call me silly? Would they finally see me? I could not tell. Sleep did not come. Instead, I lay awake, tangled in thoughts. I thought about Claire again, her dreams, her kindness. Was she truly here to help me, or was this just another game? I remembered the sadness in her eyes when she spoke about her grandmother. That pain was real. Could I trust that pain? Could I trust her? I felt my chest tighten. My heart ached. I missed the comfort of certainty. But I also knew life was not simple. It was messy. It was full of questions without answers. I sat up in bed and looked out the window. The sky was dark, but stars twinkled quietly. I wished I could reach for one and hold it close. A small light in the vast night. I whispered to myself, I will find my way. I told myself it was okay to be unsure. That strength did not mean having all the answers. It meant walking forward, even when the path was unclear. The next morning, I decided to write. I opened my notebook and let my pen move freely. I wrote about my fears, my hopes, my confusion. I wrote about the sting of loneliness and the gentle moments of hope. Writing was like breathing. It helped me feel less trapped inside my head. I found a small calm inside the swirl of thoughts. Later, I checked my phone again. A message popped up from Claire. "I hope you are well. Remember, I am here when you want to talk." I smiled softly. Her words were simple, but they felt warm. I replied, "Thank you. I appreciate that." I felt a little less alone. But still, the questions remained. I could not stop thinking, and maybe that was the first step, the beginning of understanding. Because sometimes, we have to sit with our doubts to find our truth. And I was ready to do just that. The rain fell softly against my window pane that evening. I sat by the glass, watching the droplets race each other down the cold surface. The world outside looked blurry and distant, just like I felt inside. A quiet pain settled deep in my chest. It was not loud or sharp. It was gentle, slow, and heavy, like a sad song playing softly in the background of my life. I did not cry at first. Instead, I just sat there, feeling empty and tired. Sometimes pain is not about tears. It is about silence, about the spaces between words. I thought about the people who should have been near me. My children. They had said I was too much, too old, too noisy. I remembered the last family dinner when I had tried to share a story from my day. They barely listened. Their eyes were on their phones or on the TV. I had felt invisible. That night, the silence at my window was louder than any argument. I wondered why love sometimes felt so far away, why family, who were supposed to be closest, could hurt the most. My heart ached for the simple warmth of being understood. For someone to say, "I see you. I hear you." But that warmth had been missing for too long. I breathed in deeply, trying to hold myself together. It was easy to fall into the trap of blaming myself. Was I too stubborn? Too proud? Had I pushed them away? The questions spun around and around, but I knew blaming myself would not heal this pain. I needed to be gentle with myself. I needed to learn to carry this pain without letting it break me. The rain continued to fall, and with it, a strange comfort came. There was something peaceful about the steady rhythm, something healing in the quiet sound. I closed my eyes and let the tears come. They were slow at first. Then they fell freely. Not from sadness alone, but from years of holding back. I cried for the little girl I once was, the one who believed that family was forever. I cried for the woman I had become. Strong, but sometimes lonely. And I cried for the hope that still lived quietly inside me. After a while, the tears stopped. The pain did not disappear, but it softened. It was like a shadow that stayed close, but did not control me. I wiped my cheeks and looked out the window again. The rain had slowed. The sky was still gray, but the world felt a little clearer. In that moment, I realized something important. Pain is a part of life, but it does not have to be the whole story. There is strength in feeling deeply. There is courage in allowing yourself to be broken and to heal. I thought about Claire and Daniel, about trust and doubt, about the uncertain path ahead. I knew I would have to face difficult choices soon. But for now, I would give myself permission to feel this quiet pain, to rest in it, to understand it, because only then could I begin to move forward. I turned away from the window and walked slowly to my bed. I felt tired, but also strangely calm. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought inside the heart, and sometimes the softest moments hold the greatest power. I whispered to myself, I am still here. I am still strong. With that, I finally allowed myself to sleep. The rain continued gently outside, a reminder that even storms end and new days come. The morning light came quietly through the curtains, but inside me, a storm was growing. I woke up with one thought swirling in my mind. I needed an answer. I could no longer live with the uncertainty. The pain from last night was still there, but now it was sharper, more urgent. I could not keep pretending everything was fine. I needed to know the truth. After breakfast, I called Claire. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. She said, Helen, are you sure you want to do this? I did not hesitate. Yes, I have to. We agreed to meet at a small café near my house. As I walked there, my heart pounded with fear and hope. Would she tell me what I needed to hear? Or would I hear words that would break me even more? When I saw Claire sitting at the corner table, I sat down slowly. She looked at me with kindness, but also sadness. Helen, she began, there is something you should know. Something I should have told you before. I held my breath. She continued, Daniel has been hiding things from you. Things that affect us all. My mind raced. What kind of things? I asked quietly. Claire took a deep breath and said, He has been involved in some business deals without telling you. And worse, he has not been honest about his feelings. I felt my hands tremble. Why did he do this? I asked. Claire looked down, then met my eyes again. I think he was afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of failing. The pieces began to fall into place. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden distance. But hearing it aloud made the pain sharper. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run away. Instead, I sat there, trying to hold myself together. Claire reached out and took my hand. You deserve the truth, Helen, no matter how hard it is. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. After our meeting, I felt exhausted, but also clearer. I knew I could not avoid Daniel any longer. That evening, I called him. He answered on the second ring, his voice tense. We need to talk, I said, simply. He agreed to meet the next day. That night, I could hardly sleep. I kept thinking about what Claire had said. Was Daniel really afraid? Was he hiding from me because he did not trust me? Or was there something more? The next afternoon, we met at the park where we used to walk together. The air was warm, and the trees swayed gently. But between us, there was a cold silence. I looked at Daniel and saw the man I loved, but also a stranger I barely knew. I asked him directly, Why did you keep things from me? He looked away, then back at me. I did not want to hurt you, he said softly. But keeping secrets hurt more. His eyes showed pain and regret. I was scared, Helen. Scared of losing your respect. Scared of failing you. I wanted to believe him, but the doubt still whispered inside me. How can I trust you again? I asked. Daniel took my hands in his. I will do everything to earn your trust back. Please, do not give up on us. His words touched my heart. But I knew trust is not given easily. It must be rebuilt slowly, step by step. I told him, I want to believe you, but I need time, and I need honesty. He nodded, understanding the weight of my words. As we sat on the bench, the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. It felt like a new beginning, fragile, but real. That night, I felt a mix of emotions: pain, hope, fear, and strength. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in a long time, I felt I was moving forward. I whispered to myself, I will find my way, one step at a time. And with that, I let the quiet settle around me, ready to face whatever came next. Days passed slowly after that meeting with Daniel. I kept thinking about his words and his eyes, so full of regret and fear. Yet something still did not feel right deep inside me. I wanted to trust him, but my heart whispered caution. One afternoon, I decided to look into things on my own. I opened the folder Daniel had left on the kitchen table, a file of papers and emails he had said were important for the business. As I read through them carefully, a new picture began to form. Daniel had been working hard, but also hiding mistakes and secrets from me. Some of the business deals were risky, and he had borrowed money without telling me. It was not just about fear or failing. It was something more complicated. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, a mix of sadness and anger. Why had he not trusted me enough to share these troubles? Why did he think I could not handle the truth? That evening, I sat alone in the living room, holding the papers tightly. Tears came slowly, but they did not come from sadness alone. They came from a deep feeling of betrayal, the feeling of being left out, of being underestimated. I understood then how much I had given to this family and how much I had sacrificed. And yet, the person I trusted the most had kept me in the dark. I thought about all the times I had believed in Daniel, supported him, and stood by his side. Now, I was forced to face a new reality, one where trust had cracks, and love was not enough to fix everything. But understanding this truth also gave me a strange kind of power. For the first time, I felt that I could face the reality without fear. I could no longer pretend everything was fine. I had to be honest, with myself and with Daniel. The next morning, I called Claire again. I told her what I had found. She listened quietly, then said, "Helen, this is painful, but you are strong. You have the power to decide what comes next." Her words gave me comfort. I was not alone. I spent the next days thinking deeply. I did not want to rush into any decision. I wanted to heal, but also to protect myself. I realized that healing would take time. It would not come from ignoring the pain or pretending it did not exist. It would come from facing the truth and learning from it. One evening, Daniel came to see me. He looked tired and worried. "I want to explain everything," he said quietly. I nodded. He told me about the pressure he felt, the mistakes he made, and the fear of disappointing me. His words were honest, and I could see the regret in his eyes. But I also saw a man who was still struggling to be open and truthful. I told him, "Daniel, I finally understand why you did what you did, but understanding does not mean I accept the pain it caused me." He listened carefully. "I need time to heal, and you need to be patient," Daniel agreed. We both knew this was not the end, but a difficult new beginning. As I watched him leave that night, I felt a mix of emotions again. Sadness, hope, and a quiet strength growing inside me. I realized that understanding the truth was painful, but it was the first step toward healing. And healing was what I needed, not just for Daniel, but for myself. I whispered softly to the empty room, "I finally understand. Now I will find a way to move forward." After that difficult conversation with Daniel, I felt exhausted. The weight of truth and disappointment pressed down on me like a heavy stone. I knew I needed to make a choice that would change everything. I decided that for a while, I had to walk away, Not forever, but far enough to breathe and think clearly. That night, I packed a small bag with a few clothes and my favorite books. I told Daniel I needed some time alone, time to find myself again. He looked surprised and a little afraid, but he did not stop me. I left our home quietly, stepping into the cool night air. The street was calm and empty, and I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. I found a small bed and breakfast nearby, and stayed there for a few days. Each morning, I woke up early and walked through the quiet streets, watching the world come to life. The fresh air helped clear my mind. I spent hours writing in my journal, pouring out all the thoughts and feelings I had kept inside. I wrote about my pain, my anger, and my hopes. I wrote about the woman I wanted to become, strong, independent, and true to herself. Being alone gave me space to breathe, but it also made me realize how much I had depended on others for my happiness. I had put my trust in Daniel, in my children, and in my family. Now, I saw how fragile that trust could be. I did not want to live my life waiting for others to prove their love or loyalty. I wanted to find strength within myself. One afternoon, as I sat by the window watching the rain fall softly outside, I thought about the life I had left behind. I remembered the warm kitchen filled with laughter, the family dinners, and the quiet moments with Daniel. I missed those times deeply. But I also knew that missing the past did not mean I had to return to it blindly. I had to protect my heart. I had to be brave enough to face the future, even if it meant facing it, alone for a while. After a week of quiet reflection, I called Claire. Her voice was warm and welcoming when she answered. "I am taking some time away," I told her softly. She understood immediately and offered her support. "Sometimes, walking away is the strongest thing you can do," she said. Her words gave me courage. In the days that followed, I felt a slow change happening inside me. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I was beginning to see a path forward, a path where I could heal and grow. I wrote letters to my children and Daniel, explaining my need for space and asking for understanding. I did not know if they would respond or respect my wishes, but writing helped me feel more in control. Evening, I sat by the fireplace in my small room, sipping tea and thinking about the woman I was becoming. She was someone who could stand alone without fear, someone who could face pain and still find hope, someone who was ready to love herself first. I knew this journey would not be easy. There would be days when loneliness would feel overwhelming. But I was determined to keep moving forward, one step at a time. As I closed my journal that night, I whispered to myself, "I am walking away, but I am not giving up." The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to travel. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the quiet strength of a woman ready to rise. Even though I had physically stepped away, the pain remained. It settled quietly in the corners of my heart, like a shadow I could not shake. Every morning, I woke up hoping the ache would be gone, but it was still there, soft, persistent, and heavy. I spent many hours alone in my small room at the bed and breakfast, staring out the window at the gray sky. The rain often fell, matching my mood. I felt tired of pretending everything was okay when it was not. I missed Daniel, but more than that, I missed the trust we once had. Trust is a fragile thing. Once broken, it is difficult to fix. I kept asking myself how things had come to this. How did love turn into silence and distance? I thought about all the years we spent together. The good days and the bad days. The laughter and the arguments. The moments when we promised to be there for each other. Now those promises seemed like distant memories. The pain was not just about Daniel. It was about feeling invisible, misunderstood, and alone. I realized that sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight inside. I had to face my own fears and doubts. Was I enough? Was I worthy of love and respect? These questions haunted me at night. I found myself crying quietly, not because I was weak, but because I was tired. Tired of fighting to be seen and heard. Tired of hoping for change that might never come. But even in the darkness, I could feel a small spark inside me, a tiny flame of hope that refused to die. I reminded myself that pain is a sign that something important is happening inside. It is a sign that healing must begin. I tried to find small ways to care for myself. I cooked simple meals, even when I did not feel like eating. I listened to soft music that made me feel calm. I wrote letters to my future self, filled with encouragement and love. One day, as I walked slowly through a nearby park, I watched a group of children playing. Their laughter was bright and full of life. For a moment, I wished I could feel that carefree joy again. But then I remembered that joy comes from inside. It does not depend on others or on the past. It comes from choosing to live fully, even when life is hard. I sat on a bench and took a deep breath. The cool air filled my lungs and made me feel alive. I realized that pain and joy can exist together. They are both part of the journey. That day, I promised myself that I would not let pain stop me from moving forward. I would carry it gently, like a teacher showing me the way. I knew that healing would take time. There would be good days and bad days. But I was ready to face them all. Slowly, I began to think about my future. Not the future I had imagined with Daniel, but a new future, one that was mine to create. I dreamed of finding new passions and new friendships. I wanted to discover who I was beyond my family and my past. Though the pain stayed, it no longer ruled me. It became a part of my story, a chapter I was learning to accept. Each day, I grew a little stronger. I learned to be patient with myself and to listen to my own needs. I found comfort in small moments, the warmth of sunlight on my face, the taste of a fresh cup of tea, the quiet beauty of a sunset. I began to understand that healing is not about forgetting. It is about learning to live with the scars and still find peace. Sometimes, I still felt lonely. But now, loneliness was a signal, a reminder to reach out, to connect, or simply to rest. I was not running away from my pain anymore. I was walking with it, step by step, toward a new day. One evening, as I sat by the window, I looked at my reflection in the glass. I saw a woman who had been broken, but was not defeated. A woman who had lost much, but still had so much to give. I smiled softly, knowing that the pain would always be a part of me, but it did not define me. I was learning to live again, with courage, with hope, and with love for myself. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to keep walking, because sometimes the deepest pain can lead to the greatest strength. Sometimes, when the house is quiet and the evening light falls softly through the window, I find myself thinking about the past. I miss those simpler times, the days when laughter filled every room and worries seemed small. Memories come to me like gentle waves, washing over my heart with both sweetness and sorrow. I remember the early years of my marriage to Daniel. We were young, full of hope and dreams. Our love was a bright flame that warmed everything around us. We did not have much money, but we had each other. Every weekend, we would go for long walks in the park, holding hands and talking about our future. We dreamed of travel, children, and a cozy home filled with love. Those dreams felt so real then, like they could not be broken. I recall the sound of Daniel's laughter when he told me a silly joke, how his eyes sparkled when he looked at me. The quiet moments, too, just sitting together with a cup of tea, feeling safe and content. But as the years passed, life became more complicated. Responsibilities, work pressures, and the demands of family started to pull us apart. We stopped talking as much. The laughter grew quieter. The distance between us slowly grew, until one day I realized I did not know the man I once loved. I miss those past days not because I want to go back. I miss them because they remind me that love can exist, deeply and beautifully, that it is possible to feel connected and understood. I look at old photographs and see the faces of family members who are no longer close to me. My children, once so small and full of energy, now busy with their own lives and worries. I wonder if they remember those times too. I wonder if they miss me, or if I have become just a shadow in their memories. The past is a place I visit often, but I know I cannot live there. It is a treasure chest of moments that shaped me, but holding on too tightly only keeps me from moving forward. Still, I find comfort in those memories. They remind me who I am. They remind me of the love I gave and received. And they remind me that even when life changes, the heart remembers. I think about my mother, and how she used to tell me stories from her youth. She said that every person carries their past like a quilt. Some patches bright and warm, others faded and worn. But the quilt is always beautiful, because it tells a story of survival and love. I try to sew my own quilt with memories, hope, and new dreams. The pain of recent months has not disappeared. But when I look back at the past, I see strength. Strength to love, to forgive, and to heal. I realize that missing the past is not a weakness. It is a sign of a heart that knows what true connection feels like. One evening, as the sun set in soft pinks and golds, I sat quietly with my journal. I wrote down my memories, my fears, and my wishes for the future. Writing helped me see that the past and the present are connected. They are parts of one long story. My story. I wrote about the laughter I missed and the tears I had cried. Wrote about the moments I wished I could live again. And the moments I hoped to create. Through writing, I found a small peace. A way to hold both sadness and hope together. I know that healing will take time. But I also know that remembering the past with love helps me find the courage to keep going. So I carry my memories carefully, like precious stones in my pocket. I will always miss the past, but I will also learn to live fully in the present. Because life is still unfolding. With my new chances to love, to grow, and to find joy again. After many quiet, lonely days, I realized I could not carry the weight of my feelings alone. The pain inside me felt heavy, like a dark cloud that would not lift. I knew I needed someone to listen, someone who could understand without judging. One afternoon, I called my old friend, Susan. Susan and I had known each other for more than 30 years. She was the kind of person who could see past the surface and hear what was not said. When I heard her voice, warm and familiar, I felt a small hope begin to grow inside me. I told her everything. How I felt ignored by my children, how I struggled with loneliness, and how my heart ached for the past. Susan listened carefully. She did not interrupt or offer quick answers. Instead, she made space for my story. Her calm presence was a balm to my wounded soul. She said, "Helen, you are not alone. Many people feel lost when their family changes, but you are still the strong, loving woman I have always known." Her words touched me deeply. I realized that even though my children might not understand me now, I still had people who cared. Talking to Susan reminded me of the importance of friendship. It was a gentle reminder that love does not always come in the form we expect. Sometimes, it comes quietly from those who stand beside us in difficult times. Susan shared her own struggles and how she had learned to find joy again after loss. She said that healing is not a straight path. It is full of ups and downs, but each step forward matters. Hearing her story gave me courage. I felt less afraid of my own journey. Our conversation lasted for hours. We laughed at old memories and cried together over shared pain. By the end, I felt lighter. The heavy cloud inside me had begun to break. Susan encouraged me to keep reaching out, to not close my heart even when it hurt. She said, "Sometimes opening up is the bravest thing we can do." I understood then that healing required trust. Trust not only in others, but also in myself. I promised Susan that I would try to be kinder to myself, to allow space for mistakes and growth. That night, I sat by my window, watching the stars appear. One by one, I felt a small peace settle inside me. I was not the same woman who had started this journey, was learning to embrace my feelings, sadness, and hope together. In the days that followed, I reached out to other friends too. I found comfort in their words and strength in their presence. Slowly, I began to rebuild my world. I started small. A walk in the park, a call to an old friend, a quiet moment with a good book. Each small step helped me remember who I was beneath the pain. I was a woman who had faced many challenges and still stood tall. I was someone worthy of love and respect. Most of all, I was learning that it was okay to ask for help. Susan's friendship was a lifeline. She reminded me that no one is meant to carry their burdens alone. I felt grateful for her kindness, her patience, and her faith in me. In time, I came to understand that healing is not about forgetting the past. It is about finding new ways to live with it. It is about opening the door to new connections and new joys. Through talking with Susan and others, I found a new kind of hope. Not the bright, shiny hope of youth, but a quiet, steady light that could guide me through the dark. I knew the road ahead would still be hard. There would be days of sadness and moments of doubt. But I also knew I would not walk that road alone anymore. I was learning to trust again, in friendship, in love, and in myself. And that trust was the beginning of my true healing. Saying goodbye was the hardest thing I ever had to do. It was not just about leaving a person or a place. It was about letting go of a dream, the dream of a family that would always be there for me. For years, I had hoped that my children would see me differently, that they would understand me, respect me, and love me for who I truly was. But hope can be a quiet thief. It steals time, energy, and sometimes even our peace of mind. I remember the day I decided to say goodbye clearly. The sky was gray and heavy with rain, matching the sadness inside me. I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the empty chair across from me. That chair had once been filled with laughter and conversation. Now it held silence and distance. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone. I called my children one by one. Each call was filled with a strange mixture of pain and relief. I told them that I needed space to heal. I explained that I was saying goodbye, not because I stopped loving them, but because I needed to love myself first. There were long silences on the other end of the line. Some voices were quiet, others cold. I felt their confusion and maybe even anger. But I did not argue or try to explain more. This goodbye was mine to make. It was a boundary I had to set for my own well-being. After the calls, I felt a strange calmness. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I realized that saying goodbye did not mean I was weak. It meant I was brave enough to protect my heart. The days that followed were not easy. Sometimes I missed the sound of their voices. Sometimes I wished things could be different. But I reminded myself that healing takes time. And sometimes healing means walking away. I spent more time in my garden, where the flowers seemed to understand my sadness. I wrote in my journal, pouring out the feelings I could not say aloud. I listened to music that touched my soul and made me feel alive again. Slowly, I began to find peace in the quiet moments. I learned to enjoy my own company. I discovered hobbies that made me smile. Most importantly, I started to believe in the possibility of a new beginning. Saying goodbye opened a door to freedom. It gave me the space to breathe and to dream again. I was no longer tied to the pain of the past. I could step forward, one small step at a time. One afternoon, as I walked through the park, I felt the sun warm my face. For the first time in a long time, I smiled without sadness. I knew I was not alone. I had friends who cared. I had myself, strong, hopeful, and ready to embrace whatever came next. Goodbye was not the end. It was the beginning of my journey back to joy. Being alone is not easy. After I said goodbye to my children, a quiet stillness settled into my life. My house felt bigger and emptier. The rooms echoed with memories, but no longer with voices. At first, the silence was painful. I missed the sound of footsteps in the hallway. I missed the laughter and even the small arguments. I missed feeling connected to people who once meant everything to me. Yet, as the days passed, I began to see something new in this solitude. I was alone, yes, but I was also free. Free from the weight of disappointment. Free from the pain of feeling invisible. Free to find myself again. In the quiet, I started to listen, not to others, but to my own heart. I asked myself who I was without the roles I had played for so long. Who was I beyond being a mother or a wife? What did I want from life? These were questions I had never dared to ask before. The answers came slowly, like the gentle light of dawn. I realized I had dreams that were still alive inside me. Dreams I had put away to take care of others. Now, I could reach for them. I learned to enjoy simple pleasures. A morning cup of tea while watching the sunrise, a walk in the park, feeling the fresh air on my face, reading books that made me think and feel. I started to keep a journal, writing down my thoughts and feelings. Sometimes the words were sad, sometimes they were hopeful. But every word helped me heal a little more. Being alone gave me space to grow. I began to take care of my health with gentle exercise and better food. I joined a small book club at the local library, where I met kind people who shared my love of stories. I even took a painting class, something I had wanted to try for years but never had the courage. These new experiences opened doors to a part of me that had been hidden for a long time. Was not just a woman who had been hurt. I was a woman who was learning to live fully again. I will not lie. Loneliness was still there sometimes. It came like a shadow on quiet evenings. It whispered doubts and fears. But I faced those moments with gentle kindness toward myself. I reminded myself that being alone did not mean being lonely forever. It was a chapter, not the whole story. I found strength in small rituals, lighting a candle in the evening, calling a friend just to say hello, listening to music that lifted my spirits. I discovered that I could be my own best friend. In this solitude, I learned to trust myself, to believe that I mattered, even if no one else saw it at first. I am alone now, but I am not lost. I am walking a new path, one that is mine. Each step brings me closer to the woman I want to be. A woman who is strong, gentle, and whole. I am alone now, and that is okay, because in this quiet, I have found my voice, and I am ready to be heard. The days passed slowly, but I changed in ways I did not expect. I was not the same woman who had said goodbye to her children weeks ago. Something inside me had shifted, quietly, but deeply. I felt it when I looked in the mirror. Not just the lines on my face, but the way my eyes held a new calmness. There was less fear there now, less sadness. I saw strength. I was different, and I was proud of that. I had been broken, yes, but I was also healing. Life had tested me, but I was still standing. I began to understand that the pain I felt was part of my growth. Like a tree that loses leaves in autumn, but prepares for new life. In spring, I was becoming someone new, someone wiser. I learned to trust my own feelings more. Before, I often ignored my instincts because I wanted to keep peace with others. Now, I listened carefully to what my heart told me. If something felt wrong, I did not hide it anymore. If I needed rest, I gave myself permission. This was a powerful change. I started to make small choices for myself. I cooked meals I enjoyed, even if they were not what others liked. I wore clothes that made me feel good, not just what was expected. I said no to invitations when I needed time alone. These simple acts were a way of saying, I matter. At work, I became more confident. I spoke up in meetings and shared my ideas without hesitation. It was as if a new voice inside me had found its strength. Friends noticed the change too. Some said I looked happier. Others said I seemed calmer and more peaceful. I smiled quietly at their words. It was true. I was becoming a better version of myself. One evening, I sat alone in my living room, thinking about the past year. So much had happened. Pain, loss, hope, and growth. I realized I no longer wanted to live in fear of rejection. I wanted to embrace life fully, even if it meant facing challenges. I thought about my children and the distance between us. It hurt, but I also knew that I could not change the past. What I could change was how I lived now and in the future. I decided to focus on what I could control, my own happiness and peace. This was not selfish. It was necessary. I was learning to love myself again. That love was the foundation for all the other things I wanted in life. I also saw that forgiveness was part of this journey. Not just forgiving others, but forgiving myself. For the mistakes I had made. For the times I felt weak. For the moments I gave away my power. Forgiveness was a gift I gave to myself. It freed me from the heavy chains of guilt and regret. I felt lighter, like a burden had been lifted. Being different did not mean forgetting who I was. It meant growing beyond my pain. It meant becoming more whole. I realized that life's hardships had shaped me, but they did not define me. I was more than my struggles, was a woman who had faced darkness and found her way to the light. This truth gave me hope for the future. I was ready for new beginnings. I was ready to open my heart again. Not because I needed others to complete me, but because I was complete on my own. I was different now, stronger, wiser, and more alive, and that was something to celebrate. The quiet moments I had spent alone gave me clarity. I understood now that my future did not have to follow the same old path. For many years, I had lived my life trying to meet others' expectations. My children's, my husband's, society's. But what about my own wishes? What about my dreams? It was time to focus on me. I started thinking about what truly made me happy, what gave me energy, what made me feel alive. I realized that simple pleasures like reading a good book, walking in the park, or cooking a new recipe brought me joy. Small moments, yes, but they felt important. I also remembered my love for painting, a hobby I had almost forgotten. Years ago, when life was busy and loud, I stopped making time for art. Now I wanted to pick up the brushes again. I bought new paints and canvas. In my quiet studio room, I lost myself in colors and shapes. Each stroke on the canvas felt like a step toward healing. Painting helped me express feelings I could not put into words. It was my way to speak without speaking. I showed some of my paintings to friends. Their encouragement gave me confidence. Slowly, I began sharing my art with a small local gallery. The idea of displaying my work publicly was frightening at first. What if people did not like it? But I reminded myself that this was not about approval. It was about honoring my own voice and vision. To my surprise, some people admired my paintings. A few even bought them. It felt wonderful to know that my art touched others. This success opened new doors. I started attending art classes and meeting other artists. Being part of this creative community brought new friendships and support. For the first time in a long time, I felt connected. This new chapter also made me reconsider my relationships with my family. I thought about my children and grandchildren. They had hurt me deeply. Their rejection was painful and real, but holding on to anger only made me feel smaller inside. I decided to try healing, even if it was slow and uncertain. I reached out to my daughter with a letter. I did not ask for forgiveness or change. I only shared my feelings honestly and told her I loved her. I wanted her to know I was open to building a new kind of relationship, one based on respect and understanding. Days passed before she answered. Her words were cautious but kind. She said she needed time but appreciated my honesty. It was a start. Small, fragile, but a start. This made me hopeful. I knew I could not force anyone to change, but I could change how I responded. I could choose to love without conditions, and I could protect my own heart. I also found strength in my independence. I began managing my finances carefully and planning my future. For many years, I had depended on others for security. Now, I wanted to build my own foundation. I took small steps to learn about investments and saving. I spoke with trusted advisors and read books. The feeling of control over my life was empowering. I was no longer afraid of what might happen tomorrow, because I knew I was ready to face it. The path ahead was still uncertain. There would be challenges, yes, but I was no longer alone in facing them. I had myself, and that was enough. This new path was not perfect. It was not easy, but it was mine, and I would walk it with courage and hope. I felt grateful for the lessons of the past, for the pain that had shaped me, for the love that had never fully left me, and for the chance to begin again, on my own terms. Life was a gift, and I was ready to live it fully. For a long time, I had feared being alone. I thought solitude meant loneliness. But now, I was beginning to see something different. Being alone could be peaceful. It could be a chance to listen to myself, without noise or distractions. I started waking up early, just to enjoy the quiet before the world woke up. The soft light of morning filled my room, and the air smelled fresh. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the trees move gently in the breeze. I felt calm inside. These moments became a daily gift to myself. I began writing in a journal, something I had not done since I was young. At first, the pages were empty, except for a few words. But slowly, my thoughts and feelings began to flow. Writing helped me understand my emotions better. It was like talking to a trusted friend who listened without judgment. Through writing, I realized how much I had changed over the years. I was no longer the woman who depended on others to feel worthy, was strong. I was capable. I was whole. With this new understanding, I decided to take care of my health more seriously. I started walking every day, even if it was just around the block. The fresh air and movement made me feel alive. I paid attention to what I ate, choosing foods that nourished my body. I began to meditate, learning how to calm my mind. At first, it was difficult to sit still and quiet, but little by little, I noticed a difference. My thoughts became clearer, my worries less heavy. I felt more present in each moment. This peace was something I had never known before. It was quiet, but strong. One afternoon, I visited a nearby garden I had never seen. The flowers were blooming, and butterflies danced above them. I sat on a bench and watched the world with fresh eyes. A gentle smile came to my face. I realized that beauty was everywhere, if I just took the time to see it. This simple joy gave me hope for the future. I thought about my family again. Though we had our troubles, I wanted to forgive them. Not for their sake, but for mine. I understood that holding on to pain kept me trapped in the past. Forgiveness would free me, not forgetting, but letting go of anger and hurt. This was my gift to myself. The days passed, and I kept growing stronger. I found new interests too. I joined a book club, where people shared stories and laughter. I took a cooking class and tried recipes from different countries. Every experience made me feel more alive. I was discovering parts of myself I had forgotten. Sometimes my children called or sent messages. I responded with kindness, even if their words were not perfect. I wanted to show them that love could still be gentle, even after pain. I did not expect everything to be fixed overnight. I knew healing was a slow journey, but every small step mattered. One evening, I sat by the fireplace with a warm blanket. I thought about the woman I was and the woman I was becoming. I was proud of my courage, proud that I had chosen to love myself first. This was not selfish. It was necessary. Was learning to stand tall on my own 2 feet, no longer waiting for others to notice me or give me value. I was enough, just as I was. That night, I dreamed of a bright future. A future where I lived fully, loved deeply, and found joy in everyday moments. I knew challenges would come, but I was ready to face them, because now I had something I never had before, peace in my own company, and that made all the difference. The days had grown peaceful, but I never expected that one simple afternoon would change everything once again. It was a sunny Saturday, and I was enjoying my quiet morning with a book and a cup of tea. The house was calm, filled only with the soft sounds of the birds outside. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Curious, I went to open it. There stood Jacob, my grandson. His eyes looked a little unsure, almost nervous. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Grandma, can I come in?" I was surprised but smiled warmly. "Of course, dear. Come inside." Jacob stepped in, carrying a small bag. He looked around, noticing the changes I had made in the house, the fresh flowers, the neat arrangements, the small paintings on the walls. We sat down at the kitchen table. I poured us both a cup of tea. Jacob took a deep breath. "Grandma, I've been thinking about what I said the last time I visited. I was rude, and I didn't understand you." His words touched me. I had felt the distance between us for so long. Now, here was a sign of hope. "It's okay, Jacob. We all say things we regret. What matters is that we learn from them, I said gently. He nodded, looking relieved. I wanted to apologize, and I wanted to tell you something. I leaned forward, curious. What is it? Jacob pulled out his phone and showed me pictures of a small cafe downtown. My friends and I started this place a few months ago. It's been hard work, but it's our dream. We want it to be a place where people feel welcome, just like your cooking always made me feel. I smiled. That sounds wonderful. He looked down, then back up with a shy smile. Grandma, would you like to come and visit? Maybe even help us with some recipes? I think your cooking could make it special. My heart warmed. After all this time, my cooking, the thing that had been mocked, was now something he wanted to share. I would love that, Jacob, I replied softly. For the next hour, we talked about the cafe, plans, and dreams. He told me about the struggles they faced, the long hours, the small budgets, the fierce competition. But what shone through was their passion and hope. When Jacob left, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The next few days, I thought about how I could help. I cleaned my old recipe books and selected some special dishes to try. I practiced cooking again, feeling the familiar joy return. The day I visited the cafe, I was nervous but excited. Jacob greeted me with a big smile, proud to show me around. The place was small but cozy, filled with the smell of coffee and fresh bread. Customers chatted quietly, enjoying the warm atmosphere. I spent time in the kitchen with Jacob and his friends. We experimented with new recipes, mixing old family flavors with fresh ideas. It was hard work, but I loved every moment. The customers noticed the difference too. Many asked about the new dishes, and soon, the cafe began to attract more people. Jacob was happier than I had seen in a long time. He thanked me often, but I knew it was his passion that made the place special. Still, I was glad to be part of it. Our relationship grew stronger. He started visiting more often, and we shared meals, stories, and laughter. I felt like I had gained a new family, not just by blood, but by heart. Through this experience, I learned something important. It is never too late to rebuild bridges, to heal wounds, to find connection and joy in unexpected places. I realized that even when life feels broken, there is always a chance to start again, to choose kindness, to open your heart, and to create new memories that heal old pain. Looking back, I am grateful for every moment of the journey, the hurt and the healing, the silence and the laughter, because they all brought me here, to this place of peace, love, and hope, and that, I believe, is the greatest gift of all. One afternoon, a few weeks after my visits to the cafe began, I found a letter in the mail. It was unusual because it had no return address. The envelope was plain, and the handwriting looked careful but unfamiliar. Curious, I opened it slowly. Inside was a note written on elegant paper. Dear Helen, I hope this letter finds you well. My name is Clara, and I am the editor of yesterday's magazine. We have heard wonderful things about you and your recent work with your grandson's cafe. Your story has touched many hearts. We would be honored to feature you in our upcoming issue. Your journey of rediscovery, family healing, and passion for cooking is exactly what our readers need right now. If you are interested, please contact us at the number below. Warm regards, Clara Mitchell. I sat back, stunned. Yesterday's magazine was one of the most respected lifestyle publications in the city. I had read it for years, but never imagined I would be featured in it. The letter felt like a door opening to something new and exciting. I took a deep breath and decided to call Clara the next day. Our conversation was warm and encouraging. Clara wanted to know more about my life, my cooking, and my relationship with Jacob and the cafe. She said her readers loved stories about family, growth, and second chances. I was nervous, but also excited. Over the next few weeks, a photographer and a writer came to my home. They took pictures of me cooking, laughing, and sharing meals with Jacob. They asked questions about my past, about the challenges I faced, and about how I found strength again. I shared stories I hadn't told anyone before, about the loneliness, the hurt, and the moments I thought I might give up, but also about hope, love, and the joy of reconnecting with my family. The process was emotional, but healing. When the magazine issue was finally published, I held the glossy pages in my hands, feeling a mix of pride and disbelief. The article was titled "A Taste of Second Chances: Helen's Journey from Silence to Strength." People began to recognize me. Strangers stopped by the café just to say they had read about me. Some shared their own stories of struggle and healing. Jacob's cafe grew busier. With the new attention, they could improve the space and even add a few new staff members. But the most meaningful part was how my family reacted. My daughter called me, her voice soft and a little shy. "Mom, I saw the article. I'm proud of you." My son reached out too, saying he wanted to understand more about what I had been through. Even my grandchildren started asking questions, showing real interest in the recipes and stories I shared. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not just as a mother or grandmother, but as a woman with a story worth telling. The magazine feature opened more doors than I had expected. Invitations to speak at local events, cooking classes, and community gatherings followed. People wanted to learn how to cook the dishes I grew up with, the meals that carried memories of love and family. I was surprised by how much joy it brought me to teach others, to share not just recipes but the stories behind them. One evening, after a busy day, I sat with Jacob and the cafe team. We talked about future plans and dreams. Maybe a cookbook, maybe a food festival. The possibilities felt endless. That night, I thought about the journey that brought me here. From feeling invisible to being featured in a magazine. From silence to sharing my voice. I realized that life's challenges don't have to define us. Instead, they can inspire us to grow stronger and kinder. I'm grateful for every twist and turn, every moment of doubt and hope, because they have shaped the woman I am today, and I am ready for whatever comes next. After the magazine article came out, everything felt different, like the world had finally started to notice me again. But inside, some old feelings I thought I had buried deep were coming back. Sometimes when I was alone, memories of the past crept in, and I felt a quiet sadness I hadn't expected. One evening, after the cafe had closed, Jacob and I sat by the window watching the city lights blink on one by one. The night was calm, but I felt a storm inside me. "I never told you everything about why I stayed away for so long," I said quietly. Jacob looked at me, his usual confident smile softening. "I want to know, Grandma. I really do." I took a deep breath. When your mother and I had our problems, it wasn't just about money or disagreements. It was about trust. I felt like I lost my place in the family. I felt invisible. And that hurt more than anything. He nodded, listening carefully. I kept cooking, kept making meals, but there was no one to share them with. It was like my heart was cooking in silence. I looked down at my hands, the same hands that had prepared countless dinners over the years. That loneliness stayed with me for a long time. Jacob reached over and took my hand gently. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I never understood how hard it was for you." His words touched me deeply. I realized then how much Jacob had grown, how much we had both changed. "Thank you for saying that," I whispered. In the weeks that followed, I found myself opening up more, not just to Jacob, but to others. I shared my feelings with a few, close friends, and even with my daughter, who surprised me by inviting me over for dinner. It was a small step, but it felt huge. One afternoon, I received an unexpected visit. My son came to see me. He looked tired but sincere. "Helen," he said, "I read the article. I never thought about what you went through. I want to start over, if you'll let me." I studied his face, looking for the man I used to know and the man he wanted to be. After a moment, I nodded. "Let's try," I said. That day, I felt the weight of old wounds beginning to lift. But healing was not easy. There were moments when the past would resurface in arguments or misunderstandings. Sometimes, I wanted to retreat back into my quiet world, away from the pain. But I didn't, because I had learned that healing is a journey, not a destination, and every step forward counts. Jacob helped me more than I realized. He encouraged me to take small risks, like hosting a family dinner at the café. I was nervous, unsure if everyone would come or if old tensions would spoil the evening. But they came. My daughter, my son, even a few grandchildren showed up. The room was filled with laughter, stories, and the smell of my cooking, the recipes I had guarded for years. For the first time in a long time, I felt whole. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the quiet cafe. I thought about how far I had come, from feeling like a burden to becoming a bridge between generations. I realized that my cooking was more than just food. It was connection, memory, and love. The cafe became a place of healing, not just for me, but for my family too. One morning, I got a call from Clara at yesterday's magazine. They wanted to do a follow-up story about how my family was coming together. I hesitated at first, unsure if I wanted to share such personal moments. But then I thought, maybe our story could help others who feel lost or forgotten. I agreed. When the new article came out, I received messages from readers who said my story gave them hope. They thanked me for being honest and brave. It was humbling. Looking back, I understand now that life is never perfect. It has its pain and beauty, often mixed together. But the choice to heal, to forgive, and to love again, that is what makes us strong. I am proud of the woman I have become. Not because of the success or the stories written about me, but because I found my voice and my place again. And with Jacob by my side, and my family slowly healing, I know the best is still to come. The weeks after the family dinner felt like a fresh start, like waking up to sunlight after a long, stormy night. But even as warmth returned, I knew that healing wasn't a straight road. There would be bumps, moments of doubt, and days when old wounds would ache again. Yet, something inside me had shifted. I felt stronger, more hopeful. Jacob had become my unexpected ally. His curiosity about my past and his growing respect for my cooking helped us build a bridge across the years and generations. One afternoon, while we were cleaning the cafe together, he asked me about the restaurant I once owned. "It sounds like you were really something, Grandma," he said, wiping the counter. "Why did you sell it?" His question surprised me. I hadn't talked much about that chapter of my life. I hesitated, then decided to share. I sold it because I was tired of fighting, tired of feeling like my family didn't believe in me anymore. I wanted peace, even if it meant giving up my dream. Jacob looked thoughtful. "But you still have the dream in you, don't you?" I smiled. "Maybe I do." That evening, I sat by my kitchen window, thinking about my next steps. The cafe was stable, but I missed that spark of big ambition, the fire I had when I first started my restaurant. I realized that peace didn't have to mean giving up dreams. Maybe it meant finding new ones. The next day, I made a decision. I would create a small cooking school inside the cafe. I wanted to teach people the recipes I had guarded for so long, to share my passion, and to build a community. It felt scary, but also exciting. I talked to Jacob about it. "I want to help," he said immediately, eyes bright. Together, we planned the classes. We called it Helen's Kitchen, a place where anyone could learn to cook from simple dishes to more complex meals. I imagined families coming together, children learning to chop vegetables, young couples finding joy in cooking together. The first class was nerve-wracking. I was unsure if anyone would show up. But to my surprise, the café filled quickly. People came from all over the neighborhood, young, old, beginners, and even some who already loved cooking. As I taught them how to make my special stew, I watched their faces light up with pride when their dishes came together. It reminded me of why I started cooking in the first place, to bring joy and comfort. Jacob filmed some of the classes and shared clips on social media. Slowly, Helen's Kitchen began to grow in popularity. I received messages from people thanking me for inspiring them to cook and connect with their families. Even my daughter visited once and stayed for the whole class. I saw a softness in her eyes, a sign that maybe some walls were coming down. Still, the past was never far away. One afternoon, my son called again, this time to talk business. He wanted to borrow money to invest in a new venture. The old hesitation crept in. I didn't want to be hurt again. But this time, I was more careful. I asked questions, set clear terms, and told him I wanted to see real plans before I helped. It was different from before. I was no longer the quiet woman who gave without question. I was strong, clear, and protective of my hard-earned peace. Days later, I received a letter from the local community center. They wanted to partner with Helen's Kitchen to offer free cooking classes to elderly people who felt lonely. The idea touched me deeply. I knew what loneliness felt like, and I wanted to help others feel seen and valued. The community center classes started slowly but grew quickly. I met so many wonderful people with stories as rich as mine. Their gratitude reminded me that healing and giving back could go hand in hand. One chilly evening, after a long day of classes and planning, I sat down with a cup of tea. Jacob came over, tired but smiling. "Grandma," he said, "you've changed everything for me. I see how strong you are now." His words felt like a warm hug. I told him, "We've changed together. You helped me find my voice again." We talked long into the night about dreams, family, and future plans. There was still uncertainty, but also promise. Life had given me a second chance, not just to rebuild what I lost, but to build something new, better, and meaningful. I knew it wouldn't always be easy. There would be moments of doubt and fear, but now I faced them with courage. As I looked out my kitchen window at the quiet streets, I felt peace. Not the kind that comes from avoiding pain, but the kind that grows from facing it and choosing hope. This was my new beginning, and I was ready to embrace it, step by step. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Just when I thought I was settling into my new rhythm, something unexpected happened. Something that made me look at my family, my dreams, and myself in a completely new light. The cooking. Classes were growing steadily. I was proud of how Helen's Kitchen had become a place where people gathered not only to learn, but to share their stories and support one another. Jacob was my biggest cheerleader, helping with everything, from social media posts to organizing events. I felt connected to him in a way I hadn't before. One morning, I received a phone call that shook me. It was from my son, David. We hadn't spoken much since our last tense conversation about money, and I didn't expect him to call just to talk. But he did. "Mom," he said hesitantly, "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About us, about the family. I want to understand you better." I was stunned. His words caught me off guard. But deep inside, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was a chance to heal the broken parts between us. We agreed to meet for lunch the next day. I felt nervous but hopeful as I prepared. When we met, David looked tired but sincere. We talked openly about the past, the misunderstandings, the disappointments, and the pain. For the first time, he listened without judgment. "I was wrong to dismiss your dreams and your feelings," he said quietly. "I see now how much you've sacrificed for us, even when it didn't feel that way." I felt tears well up. It was healing to hear those words, but I knew the journey ahead would still be long. Still, this moment was a start. After lunch, David asked if he could come to one of my cooking classes. I welcomed the idea, and a week later, he showed up with my granddaughter, Emily. Watching them both in the class warmed my heart. Emily was curious and eager, just like Jacob had been. It reminded me that family ties could be mended with time, patience, and shared experiences. Back at the cafe, business was steady, but I knew I wanted to reach even more people. That's when the community center invited me to speak at a local event about loneliness and how food can bring people together. Standing on that small stage, sharing my story, I felt both vulnerable and strong. I told the audience how cooking had saved me from loneliness, and how it could save others too. After the talk, many came up to thank me, sharing their own stories of struggle and hope. One woman told me, "You've inspired me to reconnect with my estranged daughter. Thank you for showing me that it's never too late." Her words stayed with me. I realized my journey was about more than just me. It was about healing others too. Meanwhile, Jacob was growing more confident. He helped me organize a charity event to raise funds for local families in need. Seeing him take initiative and work alongside me made me proud. Our bond had become stronger than ever. Despite these positive changes, there were still moments of loneliness and doubt. Some days, I questioned if I was doing enough, if my family would ever fully understand me, or if my dreams were too late to fulfill. But each time, I reminded myself that progress, no matter how small, was still progress. One quiet evening, I sat in my living room, flipping through an old photo album. Pictures of my younger self smiled back at me, full of hope, ambition, and fire. I smiled, realizing that fire was still inside me, just waiting to burn brighter. I made a promise to myself to keep embracing change, to keep reaching out to my family, and to never stop believing in my dreams. Days turned into weeks, and I felt more peaceful than I had in years. I was no longer just surviving. I was living with purpose, connection, and hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face challenges, celebrate victories, and keep building the life I deserved. For the first time in a long time, I believed that the best was yet to come. After that long talk with David, things slowly started to change between us. It wasn't like a magic fix or everything becoming perfect overnight. Instead, it was small steps, little moments where we tried to understand each other better. I began to feel like a mother and son again, not just two people caught in past mistakes. David came to more of my cooking classes. Sometimes he helped me prepare ingredients or set up the tables. I noticed he was learning, not only about cooking, but also about patience and care. He even brought Emily and Jacob together one afternoon so they could cook as cousins. It was heartwarming to see the kids laughing and sharing stories over flour and mixing bowls. These small moments gave me hope that our family could heal, that the walls between us were coming down. I realized that pride and stubbornness had kept us apart for so long. But now, with patience and kindness, we were rebuilding bridges that had once seemed broken beyond repair. One day, I received a letter from my daughter, Sarah. We had been distant, but this letter was different. She wrote about missing me, about regrets, and about wanting to be part of my life again. I cried reading her words. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to bring my family back together piece by piece. I wrote back right away, inviting her to visit the cafe and see what I had built. I wanted her to know I still cared, despite all the hurt we had shared. A few weeks later, Sarah came with her husband and their youngest child. They were shy at first, but as they tasted my food and watched the kids play, the atmosphere grew, warm and familiar. That visit was a turning point. We began to meet regularly, sharing meals and stories. It wasn't always easy, and sometimes old arguments would flare up, but the desire to reconnect was stronger than any past pain. Meanwhile, my cooking classes were thriving. Word spread, and more people joined. I started to include recipes from my childhood, dishes my mother used to make. These recipes held memories, and sharing them helped me feel connected to my past and to others who had their own stories. Jacob became more involved too. He started filming short videos of the classes and posting them online. To my surprise, they became popular, and soon I was getting messages from people who wanted to try my recipes or visit the cafe. This support gave me confidence and a new sense of purpose. I realized that my story, my cooking, and my struggles could inspire others. I wasn't just a woman trying to find her place. I was someone who could make a difference. One afternoon, while organizing a charity event with Jacob, David, and Sarah, I looked around at our family and friends working together. I felt proud and grateful. The journey had been hard, but the rewards were worth it. Still, I knew there were challenges ahead. Healing relationships takes time, and not every day would be perfect. But now, I had faith that love and effort could overcome old wounds. As the seasons changed, I began planning a new project, a community cookbook filled with recipes and stories from people in my town. I wanted to capture the spirit of connection and hope that cooking had brought into my life. Working on the cookbook was exciting. I met many new people, each with their own unique dishes and experiences. Their stories reminded me that everyone carries a history, sometimes painful, sometimes joyful, but always worth sharing. This project also gave me a chance to show Jacob and the kids how important it is to preserve memories and family traditions. We spent weekends testing recipes and writing stories together. These moments became some of my happiest. One evening, after a long day of work, I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. I thought about how far I had come, from feeling invisible and alone to being surrounded by family, friends, and a community that cared. The future still held unknowns, but I felt ready to face them. I understood now that life is not about avoiding difficulties, but about growing stronger through them. Smiled, knowing that whatever came next, I was not alone. I had found my voice, my strength, and most importantly, my family again. This new beginning was not just for me, but for all of us, tied together by love, forgiveness, and the simple joy of sharing a meal. It was a calm Saturday afternoon when I received a call that I did not expect. The voice on the other end was soft, almost hesitant, but it was unmistakably familiar. It was Lisa, an old friend I hadn't spoken to in over 20 years. Our lives had drifted apart, partly because of time, partly because of the changes we both went through. Lisa told me she was coming to town for a short visit and hoped we could meet. At first, I felt nervous. What would we say after all these years? But there was also a warmth inside me, a hopeful feeling that maybe old friendships could be renewed. We decided to meet at the cafe. When Lisa walked in, I hardly recognized her at first. Time had left its marks on both of us, but her eyes were the same, full of kindness and curiosity. We hugged tightly, as if trying to make up for lost time. Our conversation flowed easily. We talked about our families, our challenges, and how much had changed since we last met. Lisa shared that she had moved to another state, but missed the simple life we once shared. I told her about the cafe, the cooking classes, and the project I was working on. She was impressed and encouraged me to keep going. Then, after a long pause, Lisa said something that caught me by surprise. "There's something I need to tell you," she said softly. "I recently found out some news about my family, and it made me think of you." I leaned in, curious and a bit anxious. Lisa explained that her younger brother, whom she hadn't seen in years, was actually living nearby. She had discovered this by chance, through a mutual friend. The brother had been struggling, but was now trying to rebuild his life. "What does this have to do with me?" I asked, puzzled. Lisa smiled gently. "He remembers you, Helen. You were one of the few people who cared about him when he was younger. I think he would like to see you again." I felt a rush of emotions, surprise, joy, and a little fear. Memories of those difficult times came flooding back when I had tried to help someone who was lost and hurt, someone who needed a second chance. We agreed to meet the brother together. The next day, Lisa brought him to the café. He was quiet at first, unsure how to act or what to say. But when he saw me, his eyes filled with recognition and gratitude. We talked for hours, sharing stories and laughter. He told me about the mistakes he had made, the people who had turned away from him, and how much it meant to have someone still believe in him. That visit became the start of something new. We began to meet regularly, supporting him as he worked to rebuild his life. It was not always easy. There were setbacks and doubts, but we faced them together. Meanwhile, news about the community cookbook spread even further. I received invitations to speak at local events and share my story. At one of these events, a representative from a regional food magazine approached me with an offer to feature my café in the cookbook project. This was exciting, but also a little overwhelming. I had never thought my passion for cooking and family stories would attract such attention. It made me realize that sharing our journeys can touch many lives in unexpected ways. Back at home, Jacob was thriving with his online videos. His followers were growing, and some even asked if I would do live cooking shows. I was hesitant but agreed to try. The first live show was nerve-wracking, but the response was positive and encouraging. These new opportunities brought fresh energy into my life. I felt connected not only to my family, but to a wider community who appreciated the love and effort behind every dish I prepared. One evening, as I prepared dinner for David, Sarah, and the children, I looked around the table filled with laughter and conversation. I remembered the long months of silence and pain and felt deep gratitude for this moment. Life had taught me many lessons about forgiveness, patience, and the power of second chances. It had also shown me that even after the darkest storms, there is always the possibility of new light. And so, with hope in my heart, I looked forward to whatever came next. Because now, I knew I was never truly alone. I had family, friends, and a community that believed in me. Together, we were writing a new chapter, one full of love, healing, and unexpected joys. After the reunion with Lisa's brother, life began to feel different, lighter somehow. The heaviness I had carried for so long, the weight of disappointment and loneliness, was slowly easing. Sometimes I would catch myself smiling for no particular reason, just because I felt a quiet peace inside. It wasn't easy to forgive completely. Forgiveness is not about forgetting the hurt or pretending that everything was perfect. It is about choosing to let go of anger and pain so you can move forward without being chained to the past. I had to remind myself of this every day. David noticed the change in me. One evening, as we sat in the garden watching the sunset, he said, "Helen, you seem different lately, happier, more at peace." I nodded, feeling grateful. "It's because I'm learning to forgive, not just others, but myself too," he smiled softly. "That's important. You deserve to be happy." Those words touched me deeply. For so long, I had blamed myself for many things. I thought if only I had done more, or been stronger, then maybe my family would not have drifted away. But now I was starting to understand that some things are beyond anyone's control. Meanwhile, the cafe was thriving. The community cookbook was a success, and the stories behind each recipe touched many people's hearts. I received messages from readers who said the book inspired them to reconnect with their own families or follow their passions. That was more than I had hoped for. Jacob continued to surprise me with his creativity and kindness. His videos often showed him helping others or sharing moments of joy. Watching him grow into a thoughtful young man made me proud. One afternoon, as I was preparing for a cooking class, I heard a knock at the door. It was Sarah, holding a small box. "Mom, this came for you," she said with a smile. I opened the box to find a letter and a beautiful key inside. The letter was from a lawyer, explaining that I had inherited a small old house in the countryside, from an aunt I barely knew. The key was to the house. I was surprised and curious. I had never met this aunt, and I didn't know much about her. But the idea of a quiet place away from the city sounded wonderful. A place to rest, reflect, and maybe even start something new. David suggested we visit the house together the next weekend. I agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. What would the house be like? What memories might it hold? When we arrived, the house looked simple but charming. It had a small garden filled with wildflowers and an old oak tree that stood tall and proud. Inside, the wooden floors creaked gently, and the rooms were filled with sunlight. As I walked through the house, I felt a connection I couldn't explain. It was as if the house was waiting for me to bring it back to life. Over the next few days, I began cleaning and fixing the house. I found old photographs and letters tucked away in drawers. They told stories of family history, love, and resilience. Each discovery made me feel closer to the aunt I never knew, and reminded me of the strength that runs through our family. I decided to use the house as a retreat, not just for myself, but for others who needed a break from their busy lives. A place to heal, create, and find peace. Back at the cafe, I shared this idea with Lisa and some friends. They loved it and offered to help. Together, we planned workshops, retreats, and special events that would bring people together in that quiet country house. As the weeks passed, the house slowly transformed. It became a place of laughter, learning, and new friendships. People came from near and far, drawn by the warmth and hope that filled the rooms. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the stars, I thought about how much my life had changed. From feeling invisible and forgotten, I had found purpose and joy in unexpected places. I realized that family is not only those related by blood, but also the people who stand by you, support you, and believe in you. Forgiveness opened the door to these new relationships and possibilities. I felt ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that I had the strength to overcome challenges and the courage to embrace new beginnings. Life had given me a second chance, and I intended to make the most of it, with love, gratitude, and an open heart. The quiet mornings at the countryside house became my favorite part of the day. Sitting on the porch with a warm cup of tea, I watched the sun rise over the hills, painting the sky with soft colors. It was a peaceful moment, a chance to breathe deeply and feel grateful for everything that had led me here. This house, once forgotten and empty, was now full of life. Friends and visitors arrived regularly, eager to join workshops, share stories, and simply enjoy the calm beauty of the place. We cooked together, laughed together, and healed together. The retreat became more than I ever imagined, a true sanctuary. Jacob surprised me one weekend by arriving with his camera. He wanted to film a small documentary about the house and the people it touched. At first, I hesitated. I wasn't used to being in front of a camera. but his gentle encouragement helped me open up. I shared parts of my story, the pain, the forgiveness, and the joy I found in new beginnings. Seeing my story through his eyes made me realize how much I had grown. The shy, uncertain woman I once was had transformed into someone strong and hopeful. And I owed much of that change to the unexpected kindness from others, friends, family, and even strangers who believed in me. One afternoon, Sarah called with exciting news. She had finally decided to start her own business, a small café in the city inspired by the recipes we shared in the community cookbook. She asked for my advice and support. I was thrilled. It felt wonderful to be part of her journey in a new way. We planned a visit to her cafe opening together. The space was cozy and full of warmth, with handmade decorations and the smell of fresh coffee. Sarah's dream was coming true, and I was proud of her courage to take that step. Back at the retreat house, David helped me organize a special event, a celebration of all the people who had supported the project. As we prepared, I thought about how far I had come. From loneliness and doubt to connection and purpose. The day of the celebration was bright and joyful. Friends, neighbors, and even some people from the city came together to share food, music, and stories. Jacob's documentary was shown, and many were moved by the honesty and hope it carried. As I looked around the room, I felt a deep sense of belonging. These people were my family now, chosen by love and respect. It didn't matter what had happened in the past. What mattered was what we had built together. After the event, David and I sat by the fire pit, feeling the warmth of the flames and the cool night air. He took my hand and said, "Helen, you've created something beautiful here. Not just this house, but a community that cares. I'm proud to be part of it." I smiled, feeling the truth of his words. "Thank you, David. I couldn't have done it without you and all the wonderful people who never gave up on me." As the stars twinkled above, I thought about the future. I knew challenges would come, but I felt ready to face them with hope and gratitude. The journey had taught me that life is about growth, forgiveness, and the courage to start again. I had learned that no matter how hard things seem, there is always a chance for a new beginning, and sometimes that new beginning can bring more joy than we ever expected. With a heart full of peace and a spirit ready to embrace whatever came next, I closed my eyes and whispered a quiet thank you to the universe, for second chances, for family, for love, and for me.